Have you ever noticed how people grow careless with what they think will never leave? A friend who takes your patience as weakness, a partner who mistakes your forgiveness for endless supply, a colleague who counts on your silence to mean approval. It stings, doesn't it? That quiet ache of being present, yet unseen. The truth is, they rarely respect the one who always stays. They don't bow to the saint who forgives without end, the diplomat who explains every wound, the lover who keeps handing out second chances as if one day it will change their eyes. What they recognize, though they will never admit it, is the one who chooses absence over argument, the one who lets the emptiness speak louder than pleading words. Walking away is not rage. It is not cruelty. It is the calm act of reclaiming your worth. And here lies the paradox. Sometimes the only way to be valued is to vanish. Stay with me, and let's walk into this truth together. As we step into the first chapter, picture the silence after a storm, the kind that makes the air heavy, the kind that makes everyone sense that something has changed. People don't respect the one who explains, forgives endlessly, or stays hoping to be valued. They bow to the one who vanishes without flinching. In that stillness, colder than steel, the entire space rearranges itself. Why does absence strike harder than presence? Because availability signals desperation. Every time you stay after a slight, you announce that your price can be bargained down. They may not study philosophy, but they know supply and demand. Abundance cheapens, scarcity crowns. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. In silence, you prove it." Now imagine the cycle as a cruel experiment. They hurt you, pause, and watch. You respond with paragraphs, apologies, explanations, so they adjust the dosage, sharper words, longer silences, subtler lies. Like a scientist observing a mouse press the lever that delivers pain, they conclude you cannot learn, so they escalate. You, in turn, rehearse defenses, draft monologues, pour energy into proving your worth. But then one morning, the lever clicks no more. You walk away. No fanfare, no slammed doors, no public unfriending, just stillness. The hush before a storm they never foresaw. Suddenly the scientist becomes the subject, refreshing your profile, rereading old threads, tasting the terrifying thought that maybe you found richer company in self-respect, or that your own reflection was enough. Here's where the path of disrespect splits. In the first, you chase closure. You compose essays about boundaries and feelings, only to receive back an emoji, a K, fragments of attention that mock the weight of your effort. Your thoroughness validates their laziness. In the second, you delete not the message, but the attachment in your heart. The chat bubble stays untouched, a digital tombstone. Silence becomes the sermon. Seneca said, "Silence is a lesson learned from many sufferings. That silence is enough." It tells them you will no longer finance their cruelty with your attention. It tells you your dignity has found new soil. From here, the truth grows sharper. Endurance mistaken for tolerance is not virtue. Only when you withdraw do they feel consequence. Vision fades, but scars remain. Your departure burns deeper than any conversation you ever begged to have. This scar is not for them, it is for you. For every moment you endured without end, you were chiseling away your own worth. Walking away is the treaty you sign with yourself, redrawing borders around your sovereignty. You say without words, "Here lies my dignity." Trespassers will encounter nothing but echoes. In the end, the path clears. Silence is not sulking, it is strategy. Withdrawal is not weakness, it is the boldest form of belief in yourself. You may think leaving is loss, but it is the only way to stop playing a rigged game. Epictetus taught, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. By stepping back, you win the only freedom that matters. You rise from the maze into clean air. And as you walk into that stillness, remember, the shock of absence is the only language those who once took you for granted can truly understand. That is where respect begins, not in staying, not in pleading, but in leaving clean. Moving into the second chapter, imagine yourself standing at the edge of a border not yet drawn. The air is quiet, yet heavy with decision. Walking away is not a tantrum, it is a treaty. Each step you take redraws a map, carving out new lines around your sovereignty. Here lies my dignity. Beyond this point, trespassers will encounter nothing but echoes. To many, this stance looks cold, even cruel. But cruelty to your own worth is the most lethal cruelty of all, silent, invisible, and consuming from within. Now imagine the voices around you. Some will call you stubborn, stone-hearted, dramatic. They will campaign against your clarity because your confusion served their comfort. Anyone who fed on your uncertainty will fight to keep you uncertain. But stone outlasts sand. And in this world, it is better to be steady than to be scattered. Machiavelli once warned that misplaced compassion only turns into cruelty against those who deserved your strength. The Stoics knew the same truth. Self-betrayal is the worst betrayal. When you bend past your breaking point, you injure not only yourself, but those who depend on your integrity. Here's where forgiveness enters the scene. Forgive, yes, but forgive like a Stoic. Quietly, without spectacle. Public forgiveness is like cheap credit, another loan that will never be repaid. Quiet forgiveness is cash under the mattress, safe, intact, fueling your departure. It buys your ticket forward. It keeps your peace from being auctioned in the marketplace of other people's excuses. Seneca once said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Extend that wisdom. Delay the announcement of your forgiveness until it no longer needs to be spoken. At this stage, manipulation shifts tactics. Expect the breadcrumb barrage, the sudden hey stranger, the shared memory, the nostalgia meme. Each crumb is bait. Bite once, and the respect you earned dissolves like salt in water. Patience is power. Let them starve. Every unanswered invitation weakens their grip. Each ignored attempt strengthens your stance. Leave silence unnamed, and it becomes even sharper. From here, the real work begins, not watching them, but auditing yourself. Why did I tolerate what I did? Which fracture in my foundation allowed their weight to settle there? Marcus Aurelius urged, "Look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look. Answer with honesty, and you pour concrete into those cracks." The next time someone tries the same tactics, the ground will not give way. What once shook you will find no purchase. And here is the paradox. The boldest act is often not a strike, but a step back. Fortune, Machiavelli said, is like a woman. She favors the bold. Boldness is not noise, not a raised voice or a slammed door. Boldness is the faith to walk away, wagering everything on your own self-belief. To withdraw is to declare, "My value is not in what I endure, but in what I refuse." This is where distance becomes armor and patience becomes your sharpest blade. Walking away is not weakness. It is sovereignty in motion. It is the line in the sand that no tide can erase. And as we advance, We'll see how this sovereign stance changes not just how they see you, but how you begin to see yourself. Advancing to the third chapter, picture the silence of your absence echoing louder than any argument you once made. It forces them into one of two states, reflection or unraveling, sometimes both. If reflection takes root, perhaps growth follows, but that is their harvest, not your duty. If unraveling wins, they twist stories to save face. Suddenly, you are heartless, selfish, the one who never cared. Notice the speed of this reversal. It exposes the truth. What they offered was not affection, but control, dressed as kindness. Now imagine the aftermath. Some bonds do survive a single walk away. The other person wakes up, repairs, rises. In those rare cases, you welcome them back, but through gates now guarded with new codes. Others, however, thrash about, promising reform with words that cost them nothing. Remember this: every false promise you accept invoices your peace. A debt collector never falls for sweet talk. Neither should you. Hold steady. Let actions, not apologies, be the only currency you consider. Here's where the chorus of outsiders enters. The onlookers, friends, colleagues, relatives, will voice their verdicts. They'll assign blame based on headlines, not histories. Let them talk. Reputation built on rumor is nothing but sandcastles waiting for the tide. You are not building castles of sand. You are laying fortresses on solid ground. Seasons will pass, and the storytellers will scatter. What remains is the truth you live, not the tales they spin. From here, turn inward. Practice sovereign rituals within your fortress. Invest in knowledge that sharpens the mind, in training that strengthens the body, in habits that steady the spirit. The energy you once wasted decoding mixed signals now fuels mastery. Months later, when they scroll through your life, they will find no cryptic laments, no subtweets, no public theater of pain. That absence of complaint will sting them more than any insult, because it proves you were always capable of thriving without them. This is where the Stoic wrinkle shows itself. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Walking away is the enactment of this maxim. You no longer litigate your worth. You embody it. Value demonstrated cannot be refuted. Value debated is easily discounted. Critics will accuse you of pride. Accept the charge. Pride, rightly placed, is knowing the market price of your soul and refusing clearance sales. False humility is nothing but an open invitation to predators who sense a discount. At this stage, watch carefully for scarcity's lesson. Those who once used you as emotional Wi-Fi will search for another hotspot. They may find one, but borrowed power is always unstable. In time, they will realize you were the router, not the user. By then, you will be broadcasting from a private network, your signal stronger and untouchable. Machiavelli warned that rulers must choose allies with care, avoiding flatterers who hide ambition behind admiration. In today's world, beware the cheerleader whose pom-poms conceal a pickpocket's hands. Applause can be camouflage for extraction. So walk early, walk often. Walk far from arenas where the roar intoxicates more than the results justify. For the applause of the crowd is fleeting, but the fortress you build in silence will stand through every season. And as we move forward, the lesson grows sharper still. True power is not in being seen everywhere, but in being unshakable where it matters most. Entering the fourth chapter, see yourself stepping out of a crowded hall into the cool night air. Exit is not exile. You are not banishing yourself to loneliness. You are escorting yourself to higher company. Sometimes that company is solitude itself, and solitude refines. Diamonds are not forged in the marketplace, but under pressure, hidden, waiting until their brilliance blinds doubt itself. In the same way, your quiet work in obscurity builds a shine that no approval can dim. Now imagine returning if you ever choose to. You do not come back as a desperate refugee, but as an independent state. Diplomatic ties may resume, but treaties are rewritten. Parity, not pity, governs your exchanges. If the accords are broken again, you depart even faster than before. Practice breeds efficiency. Detachment is like a muscle. The first walk feels like tearing ligaments, painful and raw. The next time feels like stretching before a run. Eventually, you sprint away from toxicity the moment it leaks through a crack. Distance ceases to be strategy and becomes reflex. Strategy is for games. Reflex is survival. Here's where love complicates the story. Do not mistake distance for frozen emotion. You can love someone deeply and still leave them. You can cherish memories even while evacuating a minefield. Love is a feeling, but boundaries are choices. Feelings may inform, but choices define. And when choices contradict feelings, the Stoic knows to favor choices, because choices sculpt the future, while feelings left unchecked corrode it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to live as if each decision carved his destiny. Your boundaries are that chisel. Advancing further, consider a final Machiavellian gem. Men rise from one ambition to another. First, they secure themselves against attack. Then, they attack others. Reverse the order. Secure yourself by making disrespect unprofitable. You never need to attack. Your life becomes a fortress so impenetrable that intruders retreat before the first strike. Seneca warned that the man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than required. Why carry the weight of defense when prevention stands taller? Build yourself so strong that disrespect bounces off stone walls before it ever reaches your heart. Here's where the mirror turns toward you, the listener still learning this art. If this lesson resonates, do not just nod, demonstrate it. Guard your focus like it is your crown. Withdraw from the noise that scatters your mind. Refine your craft until your competence becomes undeniable. Share the message with others so they too may escape the maze of dependency. Carve your motto in action, not in argument. Standards enforced in silence echo louder than sermons shouted from rooftops. At this stage, remind yourself of the final act. When you choose distance, let it be steady and final, without the burden of looking back. Respect will follow the imprint of your departing footsteps, like an army arriving too late to claim victory. Let them march in vain. Your kingdom lies ahead, not behind. Keep walking. Walk long enough, and you discover something paradoxical about distance. The farther you move from those who diminished you, the closer you come to the person you were always meant to be. From here, the realization dawns slow, like light seeping into a dark valley. It grows brighter with every step, until you wonder why you once begged for flashlights from people who never wanted you to see. Their approval was the cheapest currency on earth, and you mortgaged your soul for pennies, but now you have repossessed it. Interest compounded. And this wealth of self-respect is one treasure no one can seize again. Moving into the 5th chapter, imagine silence as fertile ground where old wounds decompose into the soil that grows new strength. The quiet you wield is no longer just a weapon, it is a workshop. Every unanswered question becomes raw material for mastery. Why did you settle for crumbs? Where did your standards fracture? Whose gaze did you try to impress? You melt each query down like ore, hammer it into fresh steel, and shape it into a blade. That blade is not for violence, but for clarity, brandished whenever someone tries to bargain over your worth. Machiavelli warned that unarmed prophets are doomed. Your new boundaries are your armor, even when they look like nothing more than a calm refusal, a door politely closed. Here's where the dividend appears. Days pass, and energy begins to return like breath after a storm. The fatigue that clung to you like wet clothes lifts. You realize exhaustion was never about workload. It was about too little respect. Emotional leeches drained you faster than any schedule. Without them, you breathe deeper, you reply slower, you sleep without rehearsing rebuttals. Your dreams shed the flavor of courtrooms, and you wake with what the ancients called euthymia, a tranquil spirit, Seneca's prized state of cheerful steadiness. In an age addicted to outrage, steadiness is rebellion. Everyone auditions anger like actors on a stage. Rage merchants sell hot takes like street food, but they secretly envy the man who refuses to buy. From here, your detachment unsettles them. Nothing unnerves a performer like an empty seat. They flip the script, accusing you of apathy, negligence, absence. Let them speak. Detachment is disciplined life, a deliberate choice to engage only where purpose demands. You are no longer chained to compulsory participation. You engage deliberately. With discipline comes reallocation. The bandwidth once wasted decoding mixed signals now funds skill acquisition. Learning becomes addictive because progress answers you in ways people never did. Advancing further, you turn this surplus into growth. You study markets, you explore languages, you train your body through resistance and your mind through strategy. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to prepare for hardship even in peace. Machiavelli gave the same counsel: study war during peace, because peace is never permanent. So you sharpen mind and muscle, not to attack, but to ensure no ambush finds you unready. Inevitably, those who lost access notice the changes late. They circle back with casual greetings cloaked in curiosity. Heard you launched a venture, saw you traveling, impressive strength gains. They are not praising you. They are scavenging proof that you remain reachable, offer none. Excellence itself becomes your new wall. They may admire the stonework, but only from outside the gate. At this stage, a new caution rises. Achievement attracts opportunists dressed in polished armor. These newcomers have not wounded you yet, but they smell fresh value and parade as allies. Test them quietly. Trust in slivers, never in loaves. Machiavelli divided allies into dependable and dangerous. He warned that mercenaries fight only while paid and change sides when the tide turns. Modern mercenaries wear smiles instead of swords, but the principle remains. Advancing to the 6th chapter, picture yourself surrounded by smiles that shine too brightly, words that land too quickly. Modern mercenaries no longer carry swords, they carry praise. If compliments arrive before contribution, you've met one. A dependable ally invests first and speaks later. The mercenary flatters to harvest your guard. Keep your courtesy intact, but never forget, you are a sovereign, not a charity. Sovereignty is not an accident, it demands ritual. Frame your mornings as if you were a monarch surveying the edges of your realm. Audit your emotions. Any lingering resentment is an unpaid invoice, and it must be collected not through retaliation, but through self-care. Train the body, because resistance under weight teaches the mind that strength is not found, it is manufactured. Review your finances, the bloodstream of autonomy. study strategy, for history's battlefield diaries hold lessons in maneuvering without marching. And when night falls, record your victories, however small. Those who chronicle their days rule their decades. The Stoics understood this. Discipline is not punishment, it is preparation. Here's where the whispers creep in. The ones you left behind need stories to fill the silence. One insists you are cold. Another says you hide heartbreak. Let them knit their tales. A lion does not issue press releases. Truth is software installed on authorized devices only. For everyone else, the feed remains scrambled. What matters most is that you no longer consume their version of you. Your identity is not their gossip. It is an internal publication with readership of one, and that one, finally, is enough. From here, a caution arises. Solitude is powerful, but unchecked it can morph into self-righteous seclusion. Marcus Aurelius warned himself, "Enter their minds, and you will find the same weakness." Even manipulators are frightened children wearing elaborate disguises. Recognize this, not to excuse betrayal, but to prevent arrogance from corroding compassion. Forgive fully, yes, but forgive quietly. Never reopen the gates you have already fortified. Compassion is charity, boundaries are taxes. A sovereign gives where he chooses, but collects where he must. At this stage, prepare for the predictable arc of return attempts. First comes the nostalgia bomb. A familiar song, an inside joke, a cafe where philosophies were once shared. If that fails, guilt grenades are launched. Real friends don't disappear. Should guilt fall flat, rage rockets ignite. So you think you're better than us? Each phase targets your empathy, for that was the lever they once knew how to pull. Now, you block them with stoic shields, perception, purpose, and premeditation of mischief. Perception, to see clearly without fog. Purpose, to remember the mission you set. And premeditation, to recall that you anticipated these tactics the very day you chose to walk away. Eventually the verdict arrives. Someone calls you ruthless. Accept it with steady eyes. Ruthless means only this, without compassion for what destroys you. And in that sense, ruthlessness is not cruelty, it is clarity. It is self-respect wearing armor. Better to be clad in armor than to bleed endlessly for those who never valued your lifeblood. Here's where the paradox sharpens. They accuse you of absence while secretly envying your steadiness. They brand you selfish, yet feed on each other's drama like carrion. Your quiet bruises them more than confrontation ever could. Detachment is not death. It is disciplined life. You have chosen deliberate engagement over compulsory participation, and with discipline comes reallocation. The time once wasted deciphering mixed signals now funds skill acquisition. Progress, unlike people, always answers. So let them call you cold, proud, ruthless. Words cannot pierce what you forged. You carry not bitterness, but balance. Not indifference, but discipline. This is the essence of the Stoic path, to cut away what corrodes and keep only what refines. And as we move into the next stage, you'll see how clarity does more than protect you from the past. It prepares you for the future that waits. A future built on sovereignty, not submission. Here's where the 7th chapter unfolds. The moment you realize that cutting away what weakens you is not cruelty, it is survival. Machiavelli praised rulers who sever liabilities quickly because delayed surgery costs kingdoms. You amputated toxicity before the rot became gangrene. That was not harshness, it was triage. And with each decisive cut, your circle may shrink, but it also densifies. The voices grow fewer, yet richer. the echo of old chaos fades, replaced by the hum of collective growth. Conversations that once spiraled into drama now climb into vision. Colleagues begin to stretch ideas instead of conflicts. Friends start to critique blind spots instead of coddling your weakness. And mentors appear, almost as if by design, because you now stand in arenas of action, not in hallways of complaint. One evening you cross a window and catch your reflection, and you pause. The posture is unfamiliar at first, shoulders open, gaze steady. Confidence crept in not as a single stride, but as a series of unnoticed steps. Now it stares back at you. This is the physical form of uncompromising standards. Predators sense it. They bypass you instinctively because certainty is unappetizing prey. Instead, you begin to draw catalysts, those who carry fire rather than fangs. Yet the strongest magnetism of all is quiet competence. What Machiavelli called virtue, effectiveness fused with resilience. Virtue bends fortune through preparedness. And fortune, like a river, is unpredictable. You cannot stop the flood, but you can shape it. Build your dikes in calm weather, and when the waters rise, you channel them into power. Those dikes are your habits. The cold dawn shower, the twilight gratitude, the daily training, the reading, the investments, the weekly solitude, the seasonal review. Routine is not monotony. Routine is destiny wearing plain clothes. But with growth comes temptation. Success whispers, prove yourself. Show them you were right to leave, resist. Broadcasting burns energy and invites sabotage. Let results leak organically. Rumors of your rise will travel faster than any declaration. The Stoics knew this. Seneca warned that nothing is more foolish than bragging of escape before the chains are gone. Both Stoics and tacticians agree the most strategic move is often no move. A silent ascent unnerves watchers because it denies them a target. Silence, however, does not mean secrecy. You still influence. Daily excellence plants uncomfortable questions in others. If they can grow after leaving, what am I tolerating by staying? Without preaching, you become a lighthouse. Your beam exposes reefs of codependency. Some curse the glare, but a few steer clear and thank you later. Influence measured in liberated lives outweighs influence measured in likes. From here, freedom multiplies. Options surface, partnerships, collaborations, ventures, even love. Independence itself is magnetic. But never forget your valuation model, respect or reject. If an offer requires you to shrink your standards, it is a hidden tax. Decline it gracefully, for opportunity that demands you edit yourself is nothing more than a disguised cage. Occasionally, loneliness whispers asking if fortress life is worth the quiet. Counter with perspective. Solitude is not punishment, it is the room that houses your highest potential. The world is loud with distraction, but in your silence, you build. And what you build there cannot be taken because it is rooted in clarity, in discipline, in the uncompromising refusal to sell your soul at a discount. So when the whisper comes, let it pass. Solitude is the rehearsal for a life lived on higher ground. And as we step toward the next lesson, the question is no longer whether walking away earns respect. It is how you use that respect to shape a destiny that outlasts every voice that once doubted you. At this stage, imagine the noise of shallow company fading into silence, like music cut mid-note. Company on false terms is rented noise, it never lasts. When true allies appear, you recognize them instantly by the absence of price tags. Until then, solitude is not a prison sentence, but a sanctuary. Yet even in sanctuary there are days when resolve trembles. A birthday passes without a call. Illness visits, and the room feels colder. Memories surface like smoke from an old fire. The urge to reach out flares. In those moments, breathe deeply and ask, will this restore or merely relive? Most often the answer whispers, relive. And healing rarely hides in history's basement. From here, nostalgia tempts you with visions sweeter than they ever were. The Stoics warned against illusions of the past. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." So when nostalgia urges relapse, weigh the cost of regression, then walk on. Walk far enough and you reach a new frontier, the place where forgiveness lives without reunion. From that high ground, resentment feels too heavy to carry further. You set it down, not as a gift to them, but as traction for yourself. Traveling light accelerates progress. Memory has already delivered justice by teaching you. The lesson stands guard at every new negotiation. Bitterness can finally retire, and your stride shifts from retreat to advance. Projects bloom like green shoots after a drought. Finances stabilize and grow. A mentor notes your calm intensity and smiles. You realize this balance between alertness and composure is precisely the equilibrium Machiavelli admired. The world calls it luck. But luck is location. You relocated from chaos to competence. Fortune visits those who prepare the ground where she can land. Then, as certain as eclipses, a message arrives from the first offender. Can we talk? I miss how you understood me. But your heartbeat stays steady. You know the truth. They miss the version of you that sacrificed itself, not the one who now survives. To reply would reopen a negotiation long closed, so the notification fades, unanswered. Some stories find closure only in silence. Seasons advance. The edges of your past blur like worn ink, but your discipline stays crystalline. You wake before the first light, not to prove yourself, but because dawn whispers truths no busy city can overhear. Breathing in the quiet, you recall a hard truth. Whoever masters mornings masters years. By the time the sun climbs, your mind is already marching. When the world stirs into quarrel, you stand equipped and untroubled, an iron gate closed against pettiness. In that calm momentum, you reflect. You see clearly that every plea you once made was a form of debt, emotional loans extended to borrowers who never meant repayment. Now those scars serve as reminders, like the mark on a warrior's arm where the blade once slipped. You translate memory into method, never extend credit when proof of value is overdue. Here's where new opportunities arrive. Faces with polished smiles, offers wrapped in bright paper. But now you weigh intention as much as outcome. Machiavelli counseled rulers to keep their word only when honor and interest align. In modern form, commitments must serve both morality and mission. Goodwill without strategy is naive charity. Strategy without goodwill is predatory. You walk the middle line where purpose meets principle. Occasionally rumors drift back. Someone calls you a phantom, unreachable, aloof. You smile because it means you built the distance well. People cannot haunt a house when the doors are locked and the owner has moved on. You now live in a stronger dwelling, self-command. You send the forwarding address only to those who respect it. And so the truth crystallizes, solitude refines, distance strengthens, and real alliance arrives only when you no longer need it. Subscribe today and keep walking strong forward.